Well, welcome to Unit 5 of BUS601. I hope you're having a good time so far. Really, you can have a good time with graduate education. It's learning stuff and experiencing anything can be enjoyable, and I want you to enjoy this. I don't want you to think you just signed on for 12 courses of drudgery, because it doesn't have to be that way. In this unit, we're going to delve into this idea of a worldview and distinguish unique elements of a Christian worldview. One of the unique things about Belhaven University is we actively and intentionally integrate a Christian worldview into everything we do, into all of our courses. We recognize that this Christian worldview is our chosen lens for how we evaluate things. Remember, in critical thinking, we talked about evaluating things against a standard. Well, this Christian worldview, as believers in Christ and as Christians, we look at this and say, this is the standard by which we are going to evaluate ideas, thoughts, and actions. Okay? And so maybe you have never taken the time, maybe you've never had to think about a worldview is. Maybe you're not familiar with the term, and that's okay. But did you know, even though you may not have encountered the term before, everybody's got a worldview. Okay. Everybody's got a worldview, whether they recognize it or not. There is a set of rules they have in their brain, or a set of ideas, evaluation standards in their brain that they got from somewhere that they use to evaluate the world. Everybody's got one, whether they recognize it or not. Now, there's a lot of people in the world. There's over 8 billion people in the world. Everybody's worldview is not like yours, but everybody's is not entirely different either. Okay, you'll find a lot of commonality on worldview with other people, and people with common worldviews kind of tend to stick together. Okay, but everybody's worldview is not exactly precisely like yours, but it's not totally radically, absolutely diametrically different either. But your worldview affects how you think about the world and how we seek to make sense of it. Okay, our brain helps us try to make sense out of what we're seeing. Our brain tries to help us put things into patterns. Our brain tries to give us what we call maps of meaning. It helps us figure out what's going on in the world and what's happening to us and make sense of it all. So a worldview is a framework or a fundamental set of beliefs that we use to view the world. It's like a filter that helps us make sense out of what we're seeing. It's a fundamental orientation of the heart, and I would say in the mind. They're presuppositions that we hold. In other words, these are ideas that we think are there, and they become the standard for evaluating what goes around us, and they inform our decisions about how we live and how we function. Some writers look at this as saying that we look at the world and what happens around us and filter it through our values. That means things that are important to us. Everybody's got some values. There's some great writing done out there by Dr. James Rokich, who came up with a set of about 36 values. Some of them are instrumental and some of them are what they call terminal values, but everybody's got them. And these are things that are most common with most people. And these values help us interpret the world by comparing what we encounter in the world by what we think is important in the world. Okay. There's assumptions. We have to make assumptions about how we think things do work and should work. Okay. And that leads us to beliefs. We actually don't go beyond those assumptions. We start to believing things. We start believing things about whether there's an afterlife, whether there's a God, what God does in our lives, what happens to us when we die, things like this. What is beliefs about what is good behavior, what is bad behavior. We start these values, assumptions, beliefs begin to overlap and influence each other, but begin to become the standard that we evaluate things by. Expectations. We after our values, assumptions, beliefs, we begin to expect things. We expect things that will happen next. We expect good or bad outcomes from choices that are made. So we have values, assumptions, beliefs, and expectations. Put those together, they spell VAVES. They kind of create a little acrostic there. And sometimes you'll hear certain writers talk about looking at the world through our VAVES, and this is what they're talking about. Now, anytime you read about worldviews, and somebody tries to introduce you to worldviews, they're going to outline some things that a worldview helps you answer. And in the worldview text that I provided for you in this course is talking about 8 basic questions that a worldview answers. Now, I've read other books that say, well, there's 6 basic questions. There's not a league-sanctioned number of questions that a worldview answers, but these are just typical lists of things that your worldview helps us deal with. Okay? Basic questions. What is really real? What's the nature of reality? Mm-hmm. What is the world around us? Is it just matter and energy, or is it things besides matter and energy going on here? What is a human being? Is there something unique about a human or not unique about a human? Are we just another critter running around in the big field of life? Okay. Do human beings have value? What happens when a person dies? Is it just the end, or is there an afterlife? Why is it possible to know anything at all? That's kind of the nature of knowledge. The worldview helps us figure out how we even know anything. The worldview helps us figure out what's right, what's wrong, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Where we live today, we're at our point in human history. And we like to think that human history has a meaning, that we can learn something from that history. Well, a worldview helps us make sense of that. And then last, but maybe not the least important, maybe the most important, is how do I live out this worldview? Once I put all these questions together and come up with some answers I can kind of live with, how do I effectuate it? How does this worldview, how is it reflected in my life? How can people tell what kind of worldview I have? Kind of covered these things already. What's really real? Is there a God or not? Is there anything out there? Is everything just material? This may be one of the most fundamental questions. The world around us, was it created? Was there a creator? Or did it just, boom, happen on its own? Is it random? Is it orderly? Okay. What is a human being? Are they, as I said, are they special? Or are we just a lump of highly developed cells? Are we just another animal running around here? When we die, is there something after death, or are we just extinct? Does we just kind of go away? Or is there some reward or punishment later? Is there a life? Is there spirit? Do we even have a spirit that lives on? Those are questions that a worldview seeks to address. About is it possible to know anything? Did humans evolve to think, or were we created to think? There's a big distinction there. Evolved or created. Are humans really conscious and rational? Is what is going on around us really what's going on? Okay. What's right or wrong? Do we get to just make that up as we go along? Or does God show us what's right or wrong? Is there an absolute right or an absolute wrong? Worldview wrestles with that. Okay. Human history, you go a little deeper. Are we here to perpetuate our species just as best we can? Or are we here? Is there a higher reason that we're here? Are we here to realize the purposes of God, carry out something God gave us to do, or not? And then last, again, I said that how do I effectuate things with my worldview? basically that's a fancy way of saying, how does my worldview affect how I behave? Okay. Do I act differently or do I act a certain way because I have a certain worldview? Now, as I said, those are the 8 questions our author uh, built his discussions of the worldview around. But typically, worldview discussions revolve around things like God, humanity, salvation, time, authority, and common in the Christian worldview is the unique role of Jesus in that worldview. How did I get a worldview? Well, we absorb it. Uh, it's not so much implanted in us, but we absorb it from birth, and we adopt it from family. You're probably going to have a similar worldview in many ways from your family because that's where you spend most of your early years. But then that circle starts to expand, and you're going to pick up worldview from friends or the community you live in. Maybe you go get some education, and that exposes you to some other ideas that make you reevaluate aspects of your worldview. Maybe you're in a particular religion or faith practice as Christians. Much of what we much of our idea of how the world works comes from the teachings of Jesus. Okay? A different religion would lead you down some other, a different path or some other conclusions. Believe it or not, media and entertainment have influences on people's worldviews because we spend a lot of time with media and entertainment. These cause thoughts, which cause us to evaluate things. And last but not least, experiences. You actually may develop or change part of your worldview based on experiences, maybe with employing aspects of the worldview you had at the time. You employ things, the result was good, the result was not good. It's either going to reinforce or make you think about aspects of your worldview. So your own experiences can affect your worldview. Can a worldview be changed? Of course it can. It can. We as human beings are continually evaluating and experiencing new things, and these things can affect our worldview. Now, the typical answer is yes, a worldview can be changed, but it's typically fairly slow. Worldviews rarely change in the flash of an eye. Okay. It usually comes with a great deal of thought and experience and frankly time. But worldviews can change and be developed, but they're relatively consistent over a long period of time. Now, the Christian worldview has very unique answers to the main 8 questions. Now, your assignment and your team assignment this week is to discover those. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what those unique answers to a worldview question would be for a person that employs what we call a Christian or biblical worldview. You're going to find them yourself, so you're going to learn them a little bit better because you found them yourself and shared them with your co-learners because it's a team assignment. But just like every other worldview has unique answers to those 8 main questions, so does the Christian worldview, many of which are provided to us through the record that we have in the Bible, in the Christian Holy Scriptures, or through the life of Jesus, as Jesus demonstrated and taught on aspects of things that we put into our worldview. But the Christian worldview has unique answers to those. This week, you're going to look at unique things about the Christian worldview. In a future assignment, you're going to compare the Christian worldview to 1 or 2 other worldviews to see where they differ. And that's called compare and contrast. It's an element of critical thinking. So we talked about critical thinking last week. Well, you're going to have to employ that critical thinking cap this week as you begin to get into worldviews. The long view is written from a very distinctive Christian worldview perspective. And that goes back to employing your worldview. Your worldview will affect how you think and evaluate and act. Okay. As you read this final chapter in the long view, look for clues about the writer's worldview. Look, look at things that Dr. Parrott says of that and say, how does that relate to one of those 8 questions that we just discussed? And begin looking at your life and how you begin to articulate your worldview, because your final assignment in this course is going to be to describe and articulate your own worldview. So you need to be kind of analyzing yourself as you go along. Reading chapter 13 of the long view will give you a good chance to begin doing that. Okay. Complete your reading assignments and your writing assignments. Work on that team assignment. We got to get that thing turned in. The earlier you start, the better off you are. Okay. There is a quiz in this unit, so you need to complete that quiz. And there's some discussion questions, I believe, this week. So I answer those if they're there for you, and learn from each other on this. I think you'll enjoy getting into the idea of a worldview. We're going to be into the idea of worldview for 2 more weeks and how it comes together and how it affects our behaviors. So begin to get a good grounding in it this week. Look at what's unique about a Christian worldview, and I'll give you feedback, or your instructor will give you feedback on your first on this team assignment about that. So have a good week. Reach out to your instructor if you need anything.